both of these players last round. Tariq was, of course, in that backup feature match featuring 3 copies of Pyromancer Ascension as his alternate win con. Dominic Harvey playing that Coalition Relic Path to Exile version.
And this is one of the bigger matchups in the modern format right now. These 2 of the best decks in the format. Is it Phoenix, largely considered the best deck right now? Amulet Titan, kind of a lot of people's pick for somewhere in 3rd through 5th after Dredge. Patel does win the die roll here. That's pretty important, as he'll start with a Scalding Tarn, Basic Island, Serum Visions. He's at 19.
Yeah, being on the play I think is a pretty big deal. Now, it's really going to be important for Tariq Patel to apply some pressure here in the early turns, whether that's Thing in the Ice or Faithless Looting into Arclight Phoenix. Something like Pyromancer Ascension might be enough, but it is potentially pretty slow. Now, Dominic Harvey, though, doesn't have a 1-drop. No Sakura Tribe Scout, no Amulet of Vigor, so Tariq Patel might have some time to get this Pyromancer Ascension online.
It was just a gemstone mine for Harvey. Second land for Patel. It's another Scalding Tarn. And here is Pyromancer Ascension. We'll see if he gets Mountain or Steam Vents. Yeah, he just gets Steam Vents. His life total is not that important of a resource in this matchup.
Now, 16 is the magic number because 16 is Primeval Titan with haste, attacking for 16 with double strike. But as long as you're at 17, I think you're doing just fine.
Well, fetch, shock. Patel's at 16.
Yeah, it's possible there's the colored sources matter more, especially with Pyromancer Ascension on the battlefield already.
Harvey does have Simic Growth Chamber as the second land. He picked up that gemstone mine. And we'll see how quickly Patel can get to work on that Ascension. Here's an Opt. The only instant sorcery in the graveyard so far was Serum Vision, so no counter just yet.
Yeah, and this is kind of the spot where Pyromancer Ascension is potentially the weakest. You're playing against a deck that can be combo-oriented, ramps up, play stuff like Primeval Titan, right? But at the same time, it has a bit of a slower draw in this scenario, so there's a chance it actually comes online. We saw a big turn last round from Tariq Patel where he threw 18 points of damage with 3 lightning bolts at his opponent to close out the game. Let's see if he can put that together this game as well.
Opt kept the card on top, followed quickly by another Opt. First counter on the Ascension. Patel keeps the card on top. Misses that third land drop as we go back Harvey's way. Yeah. Crumbling Vestige into Coalition Relic.
You know what deck doesn't have trouble hitting land drops like 99% of the time? The one with all the bounce lands.
Makes sense.
Now, Dom Harvey does deploy that Coalition Relic that basically 2 points of mana generation that ramps you from 3 to 6 on the following turn, and one of the most important additions to these new versions of Amulet Titan. They also allow an easier way to splash the Path to Exiles, which have been cropping up in basically all the lists lately.
Yeah, absolutely. Patel is going to go to work, though. There is a Serum Vision to start his turn. That's the second counter for the Pyromancer Ascension, and he has a Lightning Bolt in hand. Usually not a great card in this matchup, but with the Ascension live, that actually just cleanly answers a Primeval Titan.
Right, and that's important to note because the Primeval Titan is the main form of pressure from the Amulet Titan deck. But without an Amulet of Vigor on the battlefield, he doesn't need to hold up the red mana to bolt it during the attack step or the end step. So he's just going to go ahead and Faithless Looting, try to get a little pressure on the battlefield. It looks like he picked up an Arclight Phoenix, and he's going to get 2 copies of Faithless Looting to dig for a second to put them both on the battlefield, tapped and attacking.
Going to try to get some pressure going. Once you get some Phoenixes, it's a lot easier to kind of tread water against the Primeval Titans. The Lightning Bolt after they get their lands, not that exciting, but if you are attacking, it gets a lot better. So you see that one Phoenix does hit the bin off the first looting, and another one was picked up off the copy.
Yeah, and now he does technically still have to cast one more instant or sorcery, and he didn't find a land, if I'm not mistaken, but he did find a Surgical Extraction. And while there are no targets from Dom's side, this is where the strength of just any free spell starts to come into play. That Surgical Extraction can just target, Scalding Tarn or Serum Visions or whatever. It doesn't matter, just as long as you get that free spell. And because of how search effects work, Tariq doesn't have to strip himself of access to that card. He can just knock the ones out of his graveyard and just leave all the ones in his deck.
Yeah, Surgical's got a weird template where you can leave the card in the graveyard too.
Yeah, it's one of the few, but
I got by that on Magic Online.
That's the only place where you really get got by it, honestly.
And yeah, that second Phoenix hits the graveyard as well as a Lightning Axe. Needs one more spell. He'll play a Scalding Tarn, so now he does have that third land, fetches to 15.
Yeah, and with 3 cards in hand still, you have to imagine he's just going to fetch shock here. Cast probably something like, or maybe just gets island. You know, he has a lightning bolt in hand already, but his life total is not really in that much jeopardy because Harvey doesn't currently have Amulet of Vigor on the battlefield. So no potential haste on those Titans just yet.
So the fine was Steam Vents. He'll go to 14, and kind of as you mentioned, the magic number really is more 16 for that Titan swing.
Ooh, first Thought Scour hits an Arclight Phoenix. Second Thought Scour misses on the quad, but gets to attack for 9 this turn. And with a Lightning Bolt in hand, what is happening?
Harvey has no interest in getting beat up by 3 Phoenixes this turn.
I guess.
Great concession.
No, that's fine.
Big fan.
You know what that meant? That meant Dom didn't have a Path to Exile in hand, and even if he drew a Primeval Titan off the top of the deck, it wasn't going to be enough to save him. So he packs it in. He's seen enough. Tariq Patel taking game 1 with that powerful Pyromancer Ascension, really showing off what it can do.
And game 1 can be very important for the Phoenix deck in this matchup. There's actually 2 cards in Patel's sideboard that are largely because Amulet Titan's such a big player. If we look over at Tariq Patel's sideboard, you see 2 Flame Slash, 2 Ravenous Trap, 2 Beacon Bolt, 2 Abrade, 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Anger of the Gods, 1 Dispel, 1 Shatterstorm, and the big ones, 2 Blood Moons.
Yeah, Blood Moon is a card that I personally advocated cutting for the Izzet Phoenix decks this weekend, simply because there aren't a ton of these Amulet Titan decks running around. And in my personal experience, I just keep playing against decks where Blood Moon doesn't really do enough. But Tariq Patel obviously going to love having those Blood Moons here. And Ross said, you know, he had a couple of matchups last weekend at Regionals where Blood Moon was a big hit. So, you know, it's probably best to just always have access to them. It's such a potent effect that the Izzet Phoenix decks kind of need after sideboard in a lot of these racing scenarios.
Definitely comes into play here for Dominic Harvey. He's down a game here. Let's see what his sideboard can do to help. He has 3 Negates, 2 Engineered Explosives, a Relic of Progenitus, a Hercule's Recall, a Path to Exile, that's the 4th copy, a Tireless Tracker, a Courser of Crucifix, a Hornet Queen, a Reclamation Sage, a Celestial Purge, a Radiant Fountain, and a Tormod's Crypt. What looks good here?
Well, you want some amount of graveyard interaction. I think the Tormod's Crypt is fine. Even though something like Negate does have a bunch of hits, they're not hits that really matter all that much. You know, Negate is mostly going to target stuff like Faithless Looting or whatever, and you're just investing a 2-mana counterspell to stop a 1-mana instant or sorcery when their entire deck is just this kind of redundant effect of draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. So I don't think you really want the Negates, even though Tariq Patel does have those copies of Pyromancer Ascension. And while they look good in game 1, I wouldn't be surprised if they were I would be surprised if they were still in the deck after sideboard. Now, aside from that, the Path to Exile definitely comes in to take care of either Thing in the Ice or Phoenix. But I think Celestial Purge is the one that I'm not 100% on. The Exile effect, obviously, pretty good, but I'm not sure how good.
I'm going to go the other way. I think that is genius, and I think he plays it because of this matchup, because of Blood Moon.
That's fair. No, that is really smart. Answers of Blood Moon, I think, are important, and these two players, I'm sure, talked a bit about each other's decks, so probably have a good idea of what the other one's bringing to the table. So in that vein, probably the Reclamation Sage is good to keep around. Notably, the Coalition Relics also help you fight through Blood Moon, which has been one of the newer additions to the deck, and one that just continues to be more and more impressive as we go.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not a huge fan of Hornet Queen, even though it can block Arclight Phoenix. The Arclight Phoenixes can kind of grind through it, as well as Thing in the Ice just kind of lifts them all back into your hand. So not a huge fan of that one. But I don't mind a Tireless Tracker as just a way to beat down early and potentially close out the game if you're relying on those really reactive cards like Purge and Path.
So Dominic Harvey, Tariq Patel, we know that these are 2 players that we will be seeing at SCGCon Summer. Those of you watching at home, if you have not yet qualified for this tournament, you'll want to make it out to the Invitational. Check out an Invitational qualifier near you. These are smaller satellite tournaments. Still some good prizes at hand, $1,000 in cash going out to the top 8. Invitational qualifications, so we can meet you out at SCGCon Summer. Pick up some SCG points if you're on the hunt for those as well. Top 8 playmats and personality tokens given out for these tournaments. You can check them out at go.starcitygames.com/IQ. This is how I qualified for the first Invitational I ever played.
Yeah, actually the same for me. I played in an Invitational qualifier way back in the day, like back in like 2009, 2010, something like. Or no, it was like 2011, I think. Back when the SCG Tour was first really getting off the ground when we introduced the Invitationals. I played in one of the the Star City Opens. What were they even called back? 5Ks? I think that was the Star City 5K.
That sounds right.
I played in one of those back in 2008 and then another one in 2009. But the IQs were the way that I qualified for my first Invitational.
The first IQ I played, it was a Super IQ, they called them back then.
Oh, yeah.
Both finalists were invited, which is how IQs are all kind of structured now. Flat structure, you don't have different levels, but
yeah, it was just a bit complicated. So it's simplified, but still both players in the finals do qualify, and everyone in the top 8 actually earns points, and you can accrue potentially enough points to qualify yourself as well.
It was a humid summer day. The air conditioner at the store had gone out, but I was playing tempered steel, so it didn't matter.
This sounds like the start of The Great Gatsby.
It's actually the story of the mediocre overturf.
All right, looks like Tariq Patel's on a mulligan here, tanking on that scry. Looks like he's relatively happy with his hand. Can't figure out if he wants to keep that top card or not. He is on the draw, so it does effectively function as his 7th card.
Pretty similar to a London mulligan.
Yeah, and speaking of the London mulligan, we're gonna probably pump it later, but Versus Live this past week, Ross Merrim and I spent both days playing Modern with the London mulligan, seeing how the London mulligan actually affected these Modern decks in preparation for the Mythic Championship London coming up here in like 6 weeks or so.
Harvey is going to start with Gemstone Mine and Amulet of Vigor. Things could be much scarier on his side. Patel starts with Mountain Faithless Looting. There's one Arclight Phoenix.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like he has a second, so going to have to pitch one of those precious resources here. But the bigger story, I'm pretty sure he just has one land, and it's a mountain. So even if he untaps and draws, if it's not a blue mana source, he might not be able to cast a spell next turn.
He discarded one mana Morphos there, but he did keep another. So kind of any land plays here for a turn.
Right. But he definitely wants to draw a land next turn, no matter what it is, just so he can get the ball rolling. Now, if he goes Manamorphose into Ops, Serum Visions, or something like that, that might be enough to cast Blood Moon on turn 3. But Blood Moon on turn 3 might actually just be too slow.
So Harvey is going to play a Simic Growth Chamber, untap that with Amulet. He'll pick up the Growth Chamber itself, and here's a Sousa Lost But Seeking. Things can get real messy real fast.
Yeah, and he has actually 2 land drops here off the Azusa, so he can float 4 mana this turn. And this is kind of the degenerate starts that you see from the deck sometimes, where you generate a bunch of extra mana via bounce land and returning itself with said Amulet of Vigor. This was a lot more common back in the days when Summer Bloom was legal, and it led to a lot more busted starts because Summer Bloom lets you do it 3 times instead of just the 2 off of Azusa.
Now, Summer Bloom is just kind of a card that abstractly, it's not something most decks want, but once you get going with bounce lands, that card did some messed up stuff.
Right, and there is a reason why it was banned. And no, you could have completely crippled the deck by banning something like Primeval Titan or something similar that's a little bit more integral to the strategy. Of course, they went for the more degenerate card that still allows the deck to function in Modern, and that's been a fairly common tactic for them as far as banning and restricting things is concerned.
Ancient Stirrings will find another Growth Chamber for Harvey, and here's another Ancient Stirrings.
Yeah. And looks like he's found another bounce land, so he doesn't want to bounce that Simic Growth Chamber again, wants to replay the Gemstone Mine and go for potentially a Primeval Titan on the following turn.
Coalition Relic found off the Stirrings.
Yeah, and that's a way out from underneath the Blood Moon should Tariq Patel survive long enough to cast it on turn 3.
Knock of the deck for Patel. Is there a second land? There is.
Yeah, so now you can go Manamorphose, 2 draw spells, bring back that Phoenix and attack for 3, but he needs to find an answer for this Azusa, or else it's gonna allow Dominic Harvey to generate just a boatload of mana on the following turn.
There is a Thing in the Ice in hand for Patel as well, so a decision point there on how he wants to navigate. He'll shock for the Steam Vents. He's at 18.
Love a good knock of the deck. I have been blessed and cursed with my knocking skills over the last 6 months or so. I can basically only hit fireballs.
Sometimes fireballs are really good.
Yeah, when your opponent is at fireball range and you have a bunch of mana, fireball's nice. When you're stuck on 2 lands, you need to draw a 3rd land so you can cast Beacon Bolt. It's bad.
It's less
Not
good.
good. It's not good.
Less good.
Not good. All right, Tariq Patel here with a reasonably difficult turn. I think he's just trying to figure out if he wants to float blue-red or blue-blue off of the Manamorphose, because he has an Arclight Phoenix coming back locked up if he wants it. He can just cast Manamorphose, cast 2 blue spells, and bring it back and attack for 3. But that leaves him potentially dead to an Azusa. But if he names red in an attempt to draw a Lightning Bolt off the top to take care of the Azusa, that's going to potentially leave him with that Arclight Phoenix stranded in the graveyard.
Started with Manamorphose, made blue-blue, drew Spirebluff Canal, so we'll have a 3rd land next turn. He's going to Thought Scour himself with the first blue mana. Flood the Stranded Island, hit the graveyard, he'll draw. Looks like Serum Visions was picked up.
Yeah. Found a Serum Visions, probably going to cast that to kind of set up for next turn, but I don't even know if he's going to get a relevant next turn. Even if he casts a Blood Moon on the following turn, there's a chance Dominic Harvey has 10 lands and a Primeval Titan on the battlefield.
Yeah, so he'll cast that Serum Visions. The other thing, too, that 3rd land Spirebluff Canal, if he Blood Moons, he already discarded 1 Manamorphose, cast another, he won't have any blue mana. It actually gets kind of tough for Patel to play this game under a Blood Moon.
Yeah, and that's something that has come up for me multiple times, and yet another reason why I'm not the hugest fan of Blood Moon in the sideboard. But, we might actually see it steal game 3 for him should he fall here to a big turn from Dom on.
So 1 Phoenix back, that'll knock Harvey to 17. And we'll go to Harvey's turn.
Yeah, and Harvey's been chomping at the bit trying to get to this turn so he can do something busted. Untaps quickly, has 3 mana in play, a bounce land in hand which can function as 6 more mana, so he can go up to 9, Titan down to 3. That lets him find his Boros Garrison as well as that Slayer Stronghold. Now here's the real question. Does Dom actually have a Primeval Titan in hand or a way to find one? Now, he hasn't done it yet, so there's a chance that he just doesn't have it yet.
Yeah, 2 cards in hand we know off of revealed information for Stirrings, Simic Growth Chamber Coalition Relic. He's had Celestial Purge hanging out. None of those cards are Primeval Titan.
Yeah, I mean, he can just, develop a bunch of mana if he doesn't have the Titan, and as far as I can see in his hand, he doesn't. So this is going to be potentially an interesting game because if Tariq Patel plays Blood Moon next turn, I take it back. He was just going through the lines and trying to figure out if he could kill this turn with potentially, I guess, multiple activations of the Boros Garrison, giving +4 +0 instead of +2 +0. So here, though, I'm not sure if he can kill to 18, but you'd have to ask Edgar. Him and Daryl Ayers love making those little puzzles. It's like, hey, can you kill this turn?
So there was Summoner's Pack for Primeval Titan. Trivial to get that mana with Amulet of Susa, and here is the Titan. Notably, he's going to want to find 2 forests here. Got to respect the Blood Moon. Or if he said he had 9 mana, so he can cast the Coalition Relic here as well.
Well, the way that he's floated his mana, he doesn't actually have 9. He played it in such a way where he's going to end up with basically none floating. But he's going to be able to just hit more land drops because he's not bouncing that Simic Growth Chamber over and over again. So that's going to allow him to bounce the Boros Garrison, give the Primeval Titan haste, and he can save that next turn to, I guess, activate Sunhome should he find it.
Here's an attack for 9. Titan will trigger again. I suppose with the Celestial Purge, you can find just some untapped white source, and he can cover a Blood Moon that way.
Right.
Whatever he does, the way he could lose this game is not respecting Blood Moon. You see he finds Kabira Crossroads, Talaria West. Those will untap from the Amulet. So he has Celestial Purge mana at the ready, and he'll gain 2 life to 19. Yeah,
Purge mana at the ready, and also just a copy of Talaria West, which he can bounce next turn with the Boros Garrison if he so chooses.
Taps Talaria West, plays Boros Garrison, picks it up.
Now this is really smart play. Dom Harvey still had 1 land drop left to make. So he returns that Talaria West and casts a Coalition Relic. Still has access to Celestial Purge, which can take out the Phoenix at end of turn after getting hit for 3, or take out that Blood Moon that Tariq Patel's been kind of banking on. But as you can see, Primeval Titan already hit the battlefield, already got haste. Damage has been done.
Beacon Bolt was the draw for Patel. Looks like 5 instants and sorceries in the graveyard. It's no good.
Yeah, seems like it's 1 short. It's unfortunate.
See how he wants to navigate here. As you mentioned, these players, they know each other pretty well. They work together. Patel likely aware of the existence of the Celestial Purge, and the play here definitely signals that is a potential option for Harvey.
Yeah, and with Tariq Patel at 9 life, that Beacon Bolt one short, I believe, of being able to kill the Titan. The Blood Moon going to get hit with Celestial Purge. I don't see a way out for this game, so it looks like we're going to be having a game 3 here between Dominic, Harvey, and Tariq Patel, number 1 and number 3 on our leaderboard.
Yeah. Patel's going to think about exactly what he wants to do here. I think he is just kind of stuck. You know, he has some cantrips in hand, but there's no high-impact thing he can realistically draw to, not to eliminate a player from 19 life. He'll attack with Arclight Phoenix. That'll put Harvey down to 16.
All right, looks like he's just going to rely on this Blood Moon. But unfortunately for him, Dom Harvey has the answer.
So there's that Spire Bluff Canal as the third land.
Yeah, I think he might end up regretting discarding that Manamorphose early on instead of a different instant or sorcery that he could, potentially cast.
Well, there's Blood Moon, there's Celestial Purge, and here's your concession. We're going to go to Game 3 between these players.
Yeah, and if you're curious about what you think these players are going to be sideboarding in the matchup, you can check out the Cardboard Live extension, and that's going to let you see both players' sideboards. I'm not sure a lot of stuff is going to change here for either player. I think they both brought in their plans, and their plans are good on both sides of the coin. But Dominic really just showing off what his deck can do there. Aiming a Vigor power draws with Azusa, quite strong. Had the Primeval Titan, and even had the Celestial Purge to take care of the Blood Moon. That was a turn 4 kill. There was a lot going on in the first 3 turns of that game from both sides.
Yeah, it's really tough for the Phoenix deck to realistically win before that. The deck is often winning on, say, turn 5.
Right.
Turn 4, hard to interact with, win. As I mentioned when they're sideboarding, this matchup is largely why the Blood Moons are even in Patel 75.
Right, and if decks like Amulet Titan or Tron didn't exist, there's a chance I would just be playing Spreading Seas because it cycles and draws a card. Now, you can make arguments like maybe playing Molten Rain because it's an instant or sorcery, so it triggers Sting in the Ice. If you're playing Pyromancer Ascension, you get that extra 2 damage as well as the extra land destruction effect. But Blood Moon, just such a strong sideboard card out of these decks for shutting down those land strategies completely. But unfortunately for Tariq, a little too slow on the draw, and Dominic Harvey had the answer.
So Dominic Harvey, as I like to call him, Dominant Harvey, just been crushing it here at Season 1 of the tour in 2019. 26-year-old from Toronto. Didn't play any Opens last year, but he has 2 top 8s and a win this year.
Yeah, and on top of those 2 top 8s and a win, he also has a slew of success in Classics, as well as a regional solid performance last weekend. And also just jumping from archetype to archetype like every week, and even inside of the archetypes he plays, doing different variations on them. Early in the year, we saw Through the Breach in his Primeval Titan deck, his Primal Amulet deck, and now he's kind of more stockish. But the last 2 weeks, also Modern Events, was playing Grixis Were Prison. So really just a master of multiple archetypes, and clearly conceding in game 1 in a spot where he knew he was dead. Just great deck knowledge there, saving some time. And then in game 2, just putting up basically a turn 4 kill through a Blood Moon.
And when we talk about good Modern players, frequently we talk about archetype specialists, people that can play one deck well, but Harvey's range is so much beyond that. He is a Modern format specialist. Not only can he play multiple decks, but he innovates all the decks that he plays.
Right, and sometimes other people... here's the thing. He's had a different version of Amulet Titan that won an Open earlier this year, right? He had 2 Grixis Were results in the last 2 weeks, and then decides to go back to Amulet Titan and trusts the people who have all been working on the archetype, people like Edgar, people like Daryl Ayers, and even Matt Dilks, all having success with the archetype. They innovated the Path Exiles and the Coalition Relics, and here Dominic Harvey recognizing that is the superior version of the deck right now, as well as for the weekend, and with a 3-0 start, going to game 3 against Tariq Patel, number 3 on the leaderboard versus number 1 on the leaderboard. Let's see who takes it down.
Patel will be on the play this time. He did mulligan to 6 in game number 2. Players looking at opening 7s currently. We'll see if we can keep them both.
Now Tariq Patel looks like he has a white bordered red card in his opening hand, and I cannot imagine the Lightning Bolt still in the deck. So that's a Blood Moon, I'm pretty sure.
Steam Vents tapped is where he'll start.
It's a
it is a Lightning Bolt.
Crap.
You would have looked really smart if it was a Blood Moon.
Crap. But now it's much more funny. All right.
I'll let that thought finish itself.
Yeah. Look, I've never claimed to be smart. Other people do it for me.
Gemstone Mine, Ancient Stirrings is where Harvey will start.
But they also call me stupid. All right. The Engineer Explosives in the deck still from Dominic Harvey. I can't imagine he's like flush with them. But with Tariq Patel's two of his threats being Pyromancer Ascension and Thing in the Ice, you know, it's possible that Dom just knows that the Thing in the Ice is too big to kill sometimes, and having the ability to take it out with the Engineer Explosives, you know, he can afford to take one hit from it, right? But he can't really afford to take two.
And there is Thing in the Ice for Patel. Yeah, 2 hits often too much. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah. And Dom here just kind of sculpting, but in this matchup, it is a racing scenario. And Dom's going to need to find something like Amulet of Vigor here, I think, to have a shot at racing this Thing in the Ice, because he didn't play an Engineer Explosives for X equals 2 on a second turn, which means that he's not going to be able to play it and pop it next turn. And if Tariq Patel is able to transform that Thing in the Ice next turn via Manamorphose or what have you, there's a chance that he gets to crack in for 14 points in the next 2 swings, and then he just needs a pair of Lightning Bolts or a pair of Phoenixes to get the job done.
So the find off of the second Ancient Stirrings was a Simic Growth Chamber, though Celestial Sanctuary will be the land he'll play. He'll pick up that Gemstone Mine, which only had 1 counter left over.
And unfortunately, you're seeing the downside of those bounce lands. Occasionally, you actually end up having to move to discard, because when you're on the draw, 2 cards replace themselves, and the land returned to land. So he's got stuck with 8.
Yeah, have to discard to hand size. Note about Engineered Explosive in this matchup, I relevantly had my Crackling Drakes hit by it.
That's nice.
It's a real thing that can happen.
That's nice.
But likely that's going to need to come down to 2 in this game. We see Patel now untapping with that Thing in the Ice.
Yeah, doesn't start off with a Manamorphose here, though, so perhaps digging for it. Might not be able to transform the Thing in the Ice right now. And almost a severe misstep here from Tariq Patel. Almost missed that Thing in the Ice counter.
Yeah, Thing in the Ice, down to 3 off of Thought Scour. Thought Scour hits Pyromancer Ascension. That's no good. Arclight Phoenix, that's great.
Yeah, anytime you Thought Scour into Arclight Phoenix, it's just such an amazing feeling, because Thought Scour is innocuous by itself, right? Just kind of mopey, slide 2 things from the top of your deck in the graveyard, draw a card. Often when you're casting it, you're not really getting much value out of it. It kind of puts some stuff in the graveyard, but it's rare that you hit something great. Now, in Legacy, I've seen it do some really cool stuff with Brainstorm, being able to reset the top of your deck, or being able to Brainstorm Phoenix onto the top and then Thought Scouring it into the graveyard. But in Modern, sometimes you just get that free roll, hit a Phoenix or a Faithless Looting when you really need it, and it just feels so nice.
Yeah, early builds of the deck didn't even play the full 4, but that's been corrected at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think almost all the lists are roughly 54 cards the same, and then everyone kind of fights over Gut Chop versus Surgical and which threats to play, but Tariq Patel just not really caring what the masses say, going with 3 copies of Pyromancer Ascension. We saw it work insanely well for him last round in the mirror. We saw it single-handedly win Game 1 for him, and now, though, he's relying on Thing in the Ice to get the job done. Can't transform it this turn unless he has a free spell. Let's see if he's able to find one here off of what looks to be a Faithless Looting this turn.
Second spell was an op, so the Thing's on 2 counters. Scalding Tarn's the land for turn. He'll fetch to 18, finds Basic Mountain.
Now, he could just be main phasing a Lightning Bolt here just to turn on Arclight Phoenix, and that's fine too, because he gets to knock Dominic Harvey down to 14. And Dom still can't quite kill Thing in the Ice next turn with Engineered Explosives, so he's going to need Path to Exile to make sure that he doesn't take a boatload of damage on the following turn.
Yeah, so Bolt was the play. Phoenix came back. Harvey falls to 14. Thing in the Ice is on 1 counter. Now we'll go back Harvey's way. He's got to get something going here.
Yep, that is true.
Crumbling Vestige. He'll make a mana off of that one, even though it enters tapped, and he'll use that plus his bounce land to cast Coalition Relic.
Yeah, Crumbling Vestige, a pretty interesting land for these Amulet Titan decks, sometimes playing one of them. It kind of functions like an extra bounce land that doesn't bounce anything. When you have Amulet of Vigor, it effectively creates 2 mana, which is pretty awesome.
I think Harvey was playing 4 copies of that one when he played the Through the Breach build. Down to 1 this weekend. Back on Patel's side, Thing in the Ice will transform off of Faithless Looting. That picks up the Arclight Phoenix. That'll go right back into the graveyard, and shortly thereafter, probably onto the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, Tariq's got a bunch of cards in hand, but there's a small chance he's unable to actually return the Phoenix this turn. I saw what looked like a Beacon Bolt in hand, and if he doesn't have a land and some other stuff to do, there's a chance he just attacks for 7 and maybe tries to win in a few turns with that Phoenix coming back and maybe another Lightning Bolt. Whoa!
Ooh, a Braid, targeting Coalition Relic. That's the 2nd spell. And Lightning Bolt, that's the 3rd. Harvey off to 11 off the Bolt. This is an attack for 10.
This is an attack for 10, putting Dom Harvey all the way down to 1 life. That Lightning Bolt knocks him down to 11. The attack with the Awoken Horror and the Arclight Phoenix. Dominic Harvey not in good shape after that. A Braid knocking off that Coalition Relic. Dom needed a Path to Exile there. Didn't find it. And it might be too little, too late, no matter what he draws.
Huge aggressive turn. Also that Mana Denial taking down that Relic. Harvey doesn't got it. Tariq Patel is going to advance to 4-0, making a run at number 1 on the leaderboard here.
Yeah, he's a bit behind on points because Dominic Harvey's been padding that total, but Tariq Patel knocking off Dom Harvey, good friend there, and 4-0 start in a tournament like this with so much on the line in the coming weeks and even the next 2 months. Tariq Patel taking up that win against Dominic Harvey. That was impressive.
Yeah, and something that we talk about a lot, I know big Magic personalities, modern players of all levels have been skeptical of the legality of Faithless Looting. I know we did a fact